Hey everyone, I'm David and we're inside my travel trailer right now, and in this video I'm going to show you guys really quickly how to replace your RV's propane detector if yours has gone out like ours has. Now they say you're supposed to replace these every 5 to 7 years, but ours actually started going bad after only roughly 3 years. You know, it would just start randomly going off for no reason at all. You know, the alarm would go off, we would, turn it off, and then we would begin smelling around for propane leaks. And, sure enough, there was no propane leaks. And we even had some people joke around with us in the comment section of previous videos when we were complaining about our propane detector randomly going off, that like maybe the dog farted on it or something, and that set the propane detector off. And, it would go off when the dog was nowhere near it or anything. And it always seemed like our propane detector would just go off for no reason at all at like 3 a.m. when we're asleep. And these things are loud. So, you're at a dead sleep and then, oh my gosh, you gotta like jump out of bed, run over and turn it off. The dog is barking, the cats are freaking out. And when it would only do that every so often, it wasn't that big of a deal. But it started doing that like every single week. Once a week, we're like, okay, this is way too much. We gotta replace this thing. So in this video, I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. Now, of course, the propane detector type I'm talking about is the ones that are hardwired into your RV's 12-volt electrical circuit. And so mine used to be just right here attached to this board directly under our stove. But you can see that I did remove it because we are having the problem with it going off all the time. So before I even ordered a new one, I was just like, okay, we got to be done with this one. But the wires are right here, and we're going to be tapping into those same power and ground wires for the new model. And what I went with is a safety alert. I just bought this on Amazon. I tried to find this exact Atwood replacement by searching for the serial number, but I wasn't able to find this model at any of the dealerships in the area or online. So I just found another 12-volt propane detector that had the exact same mounting type as our old one, and I went with that. And I'll go ahead and put a link in the video description below so you guys can check this one out for yourself if you want to go with this as well. Now you guys just saw that I cut the wires from the old propane detector and I just blocked them off with some crimp connectors in the meantime. Before you do anything like that, you want to make sure that you de-energize those wires. And the way that I did that is really simple. For me, I just pulled out the accessory fuse, and that supplies power to my propane detector, as well as a number of other 12-volt DC appliances like the water pump, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out right now because we got to work with these wires. I have to remove those crimp connectors and do some basic wiring. So that is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th fuse down, and I'll just pull that out. And now those wires are de-energized, so I can safely work with them. Before we get into the wiring though, I'm gonna go ahead and attach the mounting plate for this propane detector onto this board, and then drill a small hole that I'll be able to run these wires through, so they're not like awkwardly smashed between the propane detector and this board, which was how the manufacturer originally had it. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that little flaw. And the way this mounting plate works is it just kind of slides on to the propane detector, and then the wires run through this hole in the back. So we're just gonna put 2 screws in here and here and attach it to that board just like that. So a mistake I made that you need to avoid is if your propane detector doesn't come with mounting hardware, like mine didn't, I had to select my own hardware, and I kind of messed up. You can see that this screw doesn't sit in as far as it needs to. It sort of pokes out a little bit, and so the propane detector wouldn't mount you know, the little clips wouldn't go into those recesses because it couldn't sit flush against this plate. So I then had to find some different hardware that would actually sit flush with this plate and actually go into the counter bores in this plastic plate. So we got to pull this screw out too, and then replace it with a screw like this. Now we can run these wires through that hole we drilled, and then mount the propane detector to the plate. So now we're at the wiring portion, and the wires that came with the propane detector were already pre-stripped from the factory, but you can see that they're not really, you know, they didn't really expose enough wire for us to work with. So I'm going to strip back quite a bit more than the manufacturer did, just so we've got more bare wire to work with. And there we go. Now we've got a lot more wire exposed. It's going to be a lot easier to work with that. And for the power and ground wire that I've got blocked off with these crimp connectors, I'm just going to go ahead and cut the wire back, or just cut these connectors off, because we've got plenty of wire to work with here. And then I'm going to do the same thing and then just strip back plenty of exposed wire for us to work with. And then we'll take the two red wires, which is positive, and we will just wrap those around each other. Just going to wrap those nice and tight. And then I'll place a crimp connector like this onto the end, and then crimp that down using a wire crimper. And then afterwards, it's a really good idea to do what's called a pull test. You know, give that a really good yank to make sure that's on there tight, which it is. And then we'll do the same exact thing with the ground wire. We'll wrap those two nice and tightly together, so they're making a really good connection. Place a crimp connector on, and then crimp it down nice and tight with our wire crimpers. And again, give it another good tug, pulling the wires individually as well to make sure that they're both in there nice and tight. And our propane detector is wired up. And it's also a good idea to wrap these with electrical tape, which I fully intended to do, but now I realize that I don't have any electrical tape. But I'm gonna run to the hardware store later, and I'm definitely gonna wrap both of these in electrical tape, and you should too. And now that our new propane detector is all wired in, the last thing to do is to replace our accessory fuse so that it'll be powered. There we are. And I heard a little chirp from it indicating that it's powered and it's turned on now. And now that our propane detector is powered, we can see that the green indicator light is on, telling us that it is powered and working properly. Again, this is a project that you want to be sure to do every 5 to 7 years at a minimum, or when your propane detector just goes completely on the fritz like ours did. This is something that you want to keep in mind, especially if you're buying an older used RV. If the propane detectors inside of it appear to be original equipment, you'll probably just want to replace them just to be sure they're not faulty, because the last thing you want is to have a propane leak on the inside of your trailer and then a faulty propane detector doesn't tell you about it. That could be really bad. But again, there will be links in the video description below to the propane detector that we used, as well as all of the tools that I used in case you need to pick some of those up for yourself so you can tackle this project yourself. But I hope this video was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye! Sweetie girl, do you want to say bye? Well, do you want to say bye to him? Boo! Good girl. See you guys.